drug, the company has withdrawn the drug. Now, Indian governments are putting a restriction on the price. Monsanto has destroyed the alternative seed supply in cotton. Tomorrow it can say we will not sell seed this year. Every cotton farmer of India will get wiped out. So we are talking about a blackmail economy in the making. Those are the serious questions. And Norway has the responsibility.
One last question. Can you get round?
Mr. Insan, yeah. I think you were a bit quick to disregard the report by the International Food Policy Research Institute. You mentioned it in your speech. That study shows, it was in 2008, and that study shows that there were no relation whatsoever between the farmer suicides and the introduction of BT cotton in India. Moreover, that the average Indian farmer experienced a 40% increase in yield in the cotton production. What are your thoughts on that?
The first thing is the IFPRI report was not based at all on any primary study. There was no field survey done. Most of the studies that were used were linked to Monsanto. Because Monsanto is very clever at providing data and having reports published. That is exactly what was used. Now, we are talking of seed monopoly. 1998, I mentioned, we filed a case against Monsanto for introducing BT cotton. Illegally, they were not allowed to sell BT cotton for 4 years. But in the meantime, they took over the hybrid seed market and they started already controlling the Indian cotton seed sector, and the prices started to shift. So the suicides start in 1997. There were no farm suicides before on the epidemic scale that we are seeing today. And the data from 1997 to 2000 to last year shows an increase in trend after the BT cotton because the price has increased. You know, the hybrid cotton is a little less than the BT cotton because now you have the royalty factor of 1,200 rupees per 450 grams. And a farmer who's spending more will not be in a better economic situation. They'll be in a poorer economic situation because their costs of cultivation are growing. On the issue that there is an increase in the cotton, there are two ways in which there is a misleading claim made. The first is, traditionally, cotton in India has always been cultivated as an intercrop. You have a row of cotton, you have a row of millet, you have a row of tur dal, you have a row of chilies. You always do it as a mixed system. And a lot of my life's work has been to show that when you move from a biodiverse mixed system to a monoculture, you will have more of that monoculture, no big deal, but you will have less of everything else that you destroyed. So in every cotton area now, where BT cotton has been introduced, there is no food crop cultivated. It's rows and rows and rows of BT cotton. Just as much as beans were always grown with maize, and now where you have Roundup Ready soya, you have only Roundup Ready soya. So the increase through monoculture is at the cost of food security, and the food insecurity of the farmer is leading to even additional distress, especially since food prices are rising in India. And if a farmer is not growing their food, they can't afford to buy the food, and the levels of malnutrition and hunger in rural India are increasing. The second indicator that is often used is the issue of exports, that India is exporting more. But the issue of export is related to the fact, just like textile industry has been destroyed in other places, the Indian textile industry, in cotton especially, is under siege. We are exporting most of our cotton now to China. So it isn't that we have so much surplus that we are exporting it. It's because of the destruction of the domestic cotton industry. So the two issues that need to be always seen is what disappeared in the farm and what disappeared in the manufacturing sector. Monsanto's argument in the court case right now that's happening now is that they have a right to charge the super royalties they charge because this is the economic benefit they've given. They are claiming the entire cotton industry of India as their creation, the entire ginning industry of India as their creation, all the employment generated at every link in the cotton chain as their creation. The fudging of data, that Monsanto is indulging in is part of the dishonesty and ethical violation that needs investigation.
Thanks very much for now, Vandana. There'll be an opportunity to ask Vandana more questions later when we have the panel discussion. Thanks very much. So I now want to introduce the next speaker, who is Hans-Petter Grave, who is a well-known lawyer. He's a professor and dean in the Department of Private Law at the University of Oslo. And in addition to his academic career, he's been a state attorney and a project director with the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. And of particular relevance to the discussion today is that in 2003, he was the author of the Grave Report, which formed the basis for the Council of Ethics for the guidelines that the pension fund now operates according to. So, Hans-Petter.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this event and also to learn more about the conditions in India and the operations of the multinational biotechnological industry. My task here today is to present to you more basically the background and philosophy behind the ethical guidelines that the pension fund is operated by. And I'm afraid I don't know enough about the actual issues that we are discussing today to go into more specifically the application of these guidelines to the case, but I'd be happy to engage in the discussion afterwards on that. In a way, the ethical guidelines for the pension fund are a contradiction of terms. They are ethical principles, but they are formulated as rules. They look like legal rules almost. They are enacted by the representative political bodies of the state, so they're the result of political decisions by our normal state bodies, by the parliament and the government. And they are enacted in, even though they may look like legal rules, they are non-legally binding. So they are enacted in a non-legally binding way. So, are they ethics? Are they law? Are they politics? In one sense, they are all of these, and in another sense, they are none of these. They are something special by themselves. If we look at the pension fund, the construction of the pension fund is that it has no separate legal personality. It's part of the state, so the pension fund is not separated as a body in itself, but it's part of the Norwegian government and its Norwegian government assets. The policy which has been enacted and which is sort of the thinking behind the fund is that Norway should have a large financial fund operating for returns on a commercial basis. So it's a way of securing the assets that the Norwegian government gains by exploitation of oil and gas in the North Sea. And one may, of course, question this premise. Should we build up a fund in this way, or should we use the money in other ways?